This podcast is sponsored by Engineered Tax Services, a subsidiary of Engineered Advisory, whose goal is to support CPAs and their clients to achieve the highest and best use of time and resources. ETS offers specialty tax services and incentives which help expand your capabilities and ensure that your clients are paying only what is required in taxes and nothing more. To learn more about Engineered Tax Services, go to engineeredtaxservices.com and mention the Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise podcast to receive project discounts and a free CPA partnership ebook. Hi, everyone. This is Heidi Henderson, and you are listening to the Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise podcast for accountants. I am really passionate about people and the industry. And I truly believe that the accounting industry can do better for both our clients and its professionals. So I'm going to share insights from people who have found professional success and who have managed to balance that with their physical, mental, and personal health. So I hope you enjoy, and I hope you get inspired. Accountants can earn free CPE from listening to this episode. Just visit earmarkcpe.com, download the app, take a short quiz, and get your CPE certificate. And now, on to the episode. Welcome to today's episode of Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise. Today's guest is Chase Insogna with Insogna CPA. So he's got his own practice based in Austin, Texas. And the reason that I asked Chase to be a guest on the podcast is, first off, we've worked together for a couple of years, and he's got some really great clients. We've had some great conversations about incentives and strategy, and we've connected on a few different aspects of the work life as it relates to CPA firms. And we had dinner last month, I think it was, in Vegas when we were at AICPA, and had an amazing conversation with him and his team. And one thing that really stuck out to me, and I can't remember the exact phrase, Chase, so you'll have to correct me, but it was something to the sense that you asked your employees at the end of the tax season how it went. And all of your employees said something like, this was the best or the easiest tax season we've ever had. And I was like, yeah, okay, Chase, we need to talk, because you are probably the only CPA firm that I have talked to in the last year that would say anything even close to that. And I think it's very reflective of your perspective and how you're building your firm, how you're structuring it, and your entrepreneurial thought processes behind serving clients and your staff and just the way you guys function. So super excited to have you as a guest. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about your background and where you're originally from.
So to start from the end, where you left off, that is 12 years in the making of becoming the easiest, tax season, according to my team members. But going back, to the beginning, from 2011 was when we started the firm. I've always been entrepreneurial, through college, and then I was working on the side in corporate accounting, doing taxes, doing accounting, bookkeeping, always trying to find business ideas. I just never knew it was a CPA firm at the time, and just had an opportunity to start my own firm, so I just kind of jumped into it. And I've always ran it as and grown it as a business, not a lifestyle. And there's two ways to do it there. Whichever way you want to do it is fine. I mean, that's totally your choice. My choice was, I didn't want to continue working till I was, dying at my desk, I like to say, like historically a lot of the industry has done. And for me, I have a number and I have an age, and I like to enjoy the rest of my years, not being stuck at a desk, working. That's just not my lifestyle, my choice. So I've always run it like a business, and, I've grown it that way, but, got to find the right key people, is obviously, important. And then just continuing to build the org chart out from there. And so, kind of skipping forward, it is 12 years in the making, and we've been in business 12 years, in a couple of months here. And, we have a really good team behind us. Taxes, as everybody knows, it's a struggle to find talent, but, we're very fortunate to have the team we have right now. And we're not a type of shop that just takes on anything. We're very selective in the type of work we take. And we have the right amount of clients right now for the right amount of people doing returns, business and personal. And that's what has allowed the work to be spread out properly with the right amount of talent doing them. And for that, that's why they all, like, I check in with them monthly, just kind of one-on-one, so they have an outlet, to speak to me, and scheduled outlet. And then, we do annual reviews too. But on our monthly calls after tax season, just checking in, how'd it go? And they all individually told me, it was like, this is like the easiest season we've had, like, ever. So I didn't ask them to say that. I just kind of asked about how the season was going, and that was like the general consensus. But, I have a great tax manager, a great team helping everybody. We're very tech savvy and process based, so we're completely remote. So work-life balance is easier for our team, because they can do what they want. We just, as long as they're meeting deadlines and clients are highly satisfied, that's all we care about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was awesome because I had the pleasure of meeting some of your staff members when we had dinner, and they were awesome. I had a great time sitting with you guys for a few hours and getting to know them too. And it certainly seemed like they were happy. They love what they're doing. They seemed passionate about what they were doing. And it seemed like they also had this like a mindset or something that was very different than what I typically see. And it seemed that they have a sense of ownership and a sense of problem solving. So if there are certain things that can be automated or things that they can improve on, that they've been able to sort of grab the bull by the horns and move forward with things like that. Would you say that that's accurate?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I kind of teach and motivate and train, my team is, figure it out for yourself, basically. But I'm here to give you the resources. I'm here to help you. I'm here to guide you whenever you need me. But, once somebody is trained up, I mean, I'm not throwing them to the wolves on day one. It's a 3, 6, 12-month process to properly train someone, depending on the role. But, once they're properly trained, I allow them to, make mistakes and, kind of figure it out for themselves and just be there as more of a guide and what a manager and a supervisor should be. Versus, a lot of times I kind of discover people are like more micromanaging and, they're afraid somebody's going to make a mistake with a client or, or say the wrong things. Nobody can train in that environment. Nobody can be free to be comfortable making mistakes. And so that was kind of my experience in, corporate accounting and other jobs. So I certainly didn't want to do that and be the culture here. So from day one, I've kind of operated that way and just allowed, them to grow on their own and learn on their own. And when things happen, we address it in real time. We're not like, let's wait a year to review and go through the list of mistakes you've done, like we're addressing it in real time. When I see emails go out that I'm like, you could have said it this way or that way, just try to coach and train and develop. That's really what my role is today. I don't get into the weeds I don't do bookkeeping. I'm not doing data entry stuff, reconciling books anymore. I don't review tax returns anymore. That's not, that didn't happen, in day one, but that's happened, years and years later. But that's allowed, me to help coach and train and grow the team as they want to be coached and trained.
Yeah, absolutely. And was it Abby that was talking about how she had started doing like those recordings that you would send out to clients if she saw maybe a red flag or something that she thought was interesting or had a question on, she would send an email with like a video. Like I was fascinated by how she was doing that and how you guys were talking about the success that had with your client communication.
Yeah, Heather, she's our in-house controller.
Yeah.
She, that's a role that I was really doing for 8-10 years until she came on board and I found the right person. But that role is really evolved a lot quickly. I had these ideas years ago, about how to deliver financials and how to be more proactive, but technology really wasn't there yet, and I really didn't find the right pieces, and I didn't have the bandwidth, to be honest, myself to do it. But today, with technology, so we've got into video, and we see a significant increase in clients looking at it. At least they might not reach out to us. I mean, everybody sends financials out, and they never hear from anybody. It's like
yeah,
that's how it works in the industry. But we're always like, "Did you look at them?" And they're like, they never respond back. So, but we can tell in the video stats that they're at least clicking the link. They're at least watching the video. And so what we've done is utilize video, because it's very hard to explain. In all my years when I was doing it, I would write it out, and like the bullet points of like what I saw in the financials, or like, what we should be aware of, or like thinking about, just kind of that more like coaching and advisory kind of fractional CFO type stuff, that I was doing. And so with video, now we're screen sharing, the financials, and hovering over with a mouse and like, talking about it, because people are more receptive to video and visual than they are reading it in email. So I think that we've been doing it for almost 2 years now, and we're seeing a significant, like 80+% increase in video reception on just sending out, monthly, quarterly kind of advice and financial statements. And so, I'd certainly recommend other firms, if they haven't considered it, to look at video, because somebody will sit on the couch and watch a 2-minute video, but they will not read a 2-minute email.
That's a great point. What platform do you guys use to do that?
There's a lot of them out there. I mean, we use it's called Dub Video, and but find the one that works for you, and that one has its nuances too, but it's working for us so far.
Yeah, we've used Loom as well, and we're starting to find something very similar when we'll send proposals out. Being able to have a bit of a video that's also a screen share, and you can point things out and answer questions. And not only from a client perspective, they look at it, they read it, they understand it, and oftentimes it's actually a huge time saver for us. Because a lot of times we're not getting scheduled calls, we're not spending an hour explaining things that are relatively easy. If we just understand that, look, these are the most common questions that everybody asks, or things we've recognized over years that people don't understand, and you can address some of those right off the bat. It's been incredible as an efficiency mechanism to utilize tools like that as well. And I thought it was so cool when we were talking, because I don't see that in the industry. In fact, I don't think I've seen a single firm that does that. So when you guys were talking about it, I thought that was really fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, when you're remote and working with clients not in your area, you have to find that connection, and it's not going to be face to face. I think video is the next level. The technology's there now that you can screen share, and you can do a lot of different things with video, but it's just a quick, we keep it concise. We're not like drawing it out 5-10 minutes. I mean, it's, I tell Heather to try to keep it, under 2-3 minutes at most. Just like you're picking up the phone and having a quick conversation. And that resonates with people because they can understand it. If you speak it out and they can visually watch it while you're saying it, we're having a huge increase in viewership that way.
Wow, that's cool. So what are some of the other tools or automations that you guys have implemented to reduce some of the menial tasks, or really just to create efficiencies? Because I'm guessing you have to have certain efficiencies in place to be growing your firm, have the clients, and have your staff say, hey, that was the easiest tax season we've had. So I'm curious what other things you've adopted to create those efficiencies.
We've been using the same technology for a long time. I mean, we kind of have a workflow system, and then, just making sure we communicate with clients. I would say it's not, hugely like something different or what everybody else isn't using already. It's just communication and making sure we're communicating timely with clients. But also for the easiest tax season, I mean, that really boils down to talent, which everybody struggles with. finding the right talent in the right seats, doing the right amount of returns. What we always struggled with in the past was we had enough talent, but they weren't educated enough in taxes to do higher level business returns, I would say. And the talent we have today, we can spread out the business returns and the 1040s enough where somebody isn't overwhelmed because it's like one or two people that can do business returns.
Yeah.
That's what's really availed us to be the easiest tax season this year, because we have the talent to spread out business returns really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And you have built an offshore team as well, right? So you've actually been able to add other talent outside the U.S. Is that right?
Yeah, for our accounting, we avail like offshore talent, and everything's managed here in the U.S. But we're for offshore talent, I mean, you can find somebody. They're not gonna, for us anyway. They weren't like you can just hand it off and figure it out. Like, I mean, it's my accounting manager who you didn't meet. She's daily checking in with them, project managing, communicating, looking at all the emails before they get sent out. Just it's an ongoing training with them. But once you get them trained up, I mean, we found, we're utilizing the Philippines. They're very motivated to work. Great thing is they grew up in an American culture in the Philippines, so their English is a lot easier generally to work with versus India. Like I had a team in India for the first 3 or 4 years, and the time zone and just the way India's culture works from a top-down structure just wasn't working for us. Whereas Philippines are just kind of everybody's working together to achieve the same goal, which is what we do as a firm here, and meets our firm goals really.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, there's been so much conversation with the difficulty in staffing and in hiring, especially for growing firms. I mean, that's really the number one biggest issue that everybody in the industry is talking about in the last year or two. And so it's amazing as you've been able to build that out and manage capacity with still having a team to get the work done, balance it all. So what would you say is the number one contributing factor to your success so far?
It's people. I had horrible bosses. So when I started this company, I took all those experiences and made sure they didn't happen here. And, I think if you ask my team, our culture and, how I treat people and then how, everybody else treats each other, that's really the differentiating factor. Another thing we have is, firms will just take on any type of business, and I don't do that. We have a no asshole policy. You are one or become one. We just don't work with you because it's not worth losing talent for one horrible client. And a lot of firms and managers and firm owners don't realize that because, you'll take on the work, but you're not dealing with that client every day generally. Somebody else, on your team is, and they don't want to pick up the phone every time it rings, and, they don't want to have to answer their emails, and they are talking to them and, verbally abusing them sometimes and treating them like crap. And that's a drain on a talented employee, and they'll just start looking elsewhere because why should they be dedicated to you if it can be easier to go work somewhere else? And so for me, the biggest thing from day one, we've always fired clients. If we take on clients and it's not the right fit, then we just get rid of them. And in today's environment, I mean, it's super easy because there's so much work in this industry to be had. I mean, even at the Engage conference a few weeks ago, I mean, they confirmed it. The whole industry, there's a huge bubble of work and not enough people to do it. I mean, even in we're based out of Austin. Even in Austin, we don't even compete with these firms locally because there's so much work in this town. Like, I mean, we're not having conversations like competing for work with other firms. That hasn't even come up in like the last 5 or so plus years because it doesn't exist. So why work with somebody you don't like? Why? My thing is, if you don't want to pick up the phone when that client calls, then it's time to get rid of them. And that would be my message to other firms too, to be thinking about if that's the case, with clients you have like that, then your team members are not happy, 100% happy, and they're not enjoying their job because they're having to deal with these people. And there's no reason to treat professional service like that. I mean, accountants and tax people are just trying to help business owners. And if they want to act that way, then go somewhere else.
It's a huge perspective because I think there's it's multifaceted from the perspective that realizing that you don't have to sort of succumb to that, and that being nice doesn't mean that you get treated poorly. But on the other side, I think that would be tremendous for your employees in the sense that they would understand that you have their back. There are certainly some cultures and some companies where there's a client that has an issue and it instantly turns into a blame game to employees. Well, what did you do? What happened? I can't believe, the client was so upset you didn't this or did that. But I think if we have that perspective, I appreciate what you're saying, that it helps support your employees as well. And again, build that comfort and probably that loyalty back with understanding that you've got their back and it's a positive environment.
Yeah, 100%. It's really, that's our culture. And that's what, people that come into it realize. We tell them, but they don't really believe us. And then once they're here, they're like, oh yeah. And when situations arise, like one of my younger employees, she got worked up because this client was an a-hole, and it's not like I just hear a story and then we fire them. I mean, I certainly do my research first, but what happened, what were the details, and then is it happening to other people in the firm? Is it on the accounting and tax side? It's kind of a 3-strike policy. So if it's me and my tax manager and my accounting manager, then it's time to go.
That's fair. 3 strikes, you're out. So what do you think holds people back from reaching their potential? What are some of the limitations?
Good question. Where are you trying to go with that?
I'm going deep on that. I think from a business owner perspective, people who are running and managing their own firm, and there's all this potential for growth or potential for improvement, I think, or let's call it evolving. Like, our company, we've been reading this book, Evolve or Die, and it's a great book. It's got a lot of good feedback, and our founder is always saying, we don't want to be the next Blockbuster. If you're not constantly growing and evolving, you're going to end up being the next Blockbuster. So it's like, what holds people back from progressing and from really reaching that potential?
I see. Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, in my opinion, I think at least in this industry, generally CPAs don't like change, and that's what holds a lot of people back from evolving technology-wise, process. They like to stay in their lane. This has been working, for all these years. Let's just keep doing it. For us, I mean, like I mentioned in the beginning, I've always been entrepreneurial. I like change. I like technology. I like efficiency. We like improving our clients' technology and efficiency. When they come in and their systems are, not great. So it's just like, we're doing this. Why aren't you doing this? And so I'm always embracing, and looking for, that's why I go to Vegas to engage, to see the vendors really and see what new technologies out there, see if there's something that, is going to game change to the next level. And, and we look at it, and does it fit our firm? But, I think just being open to change, I think is the number one thing for most people, to be able to evolve and be on the forefront of technology. To second that, a lot of people I interview, and even my team talks about in their old roles where they were, their firms weren't evolving. I think they're here because they know we are evolving, and they know it's different, and we're constantly changing, and it's new and inventive, so to speak. And we're not just living off our laurels. And I think especially the younger generation, a lot of them like that movement. And so when I interview people, I that's a common theme is, we're still using paper, like we're still writing everything down. We're doing like journal entries, like tax adjustments on paper. Like, really? I mean, you're not even scanning it in to enter it in the system. I mean, it's like, what world are we living in here?
Mm.
So, that if you're still living in the 80s and 90s on technology, and your talent is younger, I would say you might want to think twice because they're probably looking around, and I might be interviewing them.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. And I think you're right with the younger generations that some of the more tedious tasks as well, the younger generation has much more of that thought process of being able to use tools and efficiencies so that we're not doing these day-to-day tedious tasks that, honestly, most people don't like doing. They don't want to do that. And, I had another conversation with a firm that also has an outsourced team. And one thing they said is that team is thrilled to be doing a lot of work that honestly, their teams in-house, their tax managers and their staff had gotten a little bit bored with. Honestly, it was very mundane, repetitive work. And by being able to offshore some of those tasks, actually freed up their internal teams to become more innovative and to give them more time to work on creativity and to work on thinking outside the box and do things that were more interesting and interact with clients more directly because they weren't stuck doing just those ongoing menial tasks. And I thought that was a really interesting perspective. Have you seen the same?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. Scheduling meetings. It like blows my mind that people like haven't even discovered Calendly, because it's like a total like time saver. I mean, I used to go back and forth on emails like, what time do you have? What time do I have? What time do you have? What time do I have? I don't know. Let's keep going back and forth, and then we'll figure a time, and then we'll book it. I mean, how many emails do you waste and time sucked just trying to book a meeting, whether it's you or your admin? And I was at this conference and not engaged, but before that, and I was talking to this guy, and he's a partner at I think he's like 3 or 4 partners, a large regional firm in America.
Mhm.
Okay. And this guy was telling me the story is like, I'm thinking about hiring an admin. He was outsourcing too. And so that's how we started talking. And he was like, yeah, think about hiring an admin, but I'm always like having to book my own meetings and like, go back and forth. So I was like, well, what is your process? And he's like, well, they call, and then, she checks my calendar, and then she checks with me. And then, sometimes, I have to end up emailing back and forth too. I'm like, why don't you just use Calendly? He's like, what is that? I'm like, seriously? Like in my head, I'm thinking, seriously. I mean, you have unlimited resources. That's this major regional firm, and you have your admin spending probably half an hour booking one meeting, between
Yeah.
emails and phone calls and blah blah blah. Like, just send them a link. Let them book the time. If they can't make it, they can reschedule it, and it's automated. I mean, it ties in with your calendar. And then I just had the same conversation yesterday at a law firm. I was talking to one of their staff, and had the same thing. Like, I thought about Calendly. She had no idea what I was talking about. I was like, yeah, because their admin is the same thing. Their admin's
Mm.
looking at each calendar as somebody calls, like, when can I schedule this meeting, and like times. And if it needs to be with 2 people, then you're looking at 2 calendars and trying to compare manually. I mean, Calendly automates all this. Like you eliminate 30% of an admin's job automatically just using Calendly if they're booking meetings that way.
It's so true. I started using it, I don't know, a couple of years ago. And it really is. It's such a game changer because I had an admin and a lot of her job was scheduling calls. I mean, that was probably half of her job was scheduling calls. And yeah, there's a little bit, some people have been hesitant to do that, but more and more, there's so much more understanding of an acceptance of it. And once people use it, realize, well, this is the best thing ever. And now the interesting thing is I have a lot of people who, because they have my link, which is in my signature, They don't even email me or call me or any. I literally would just see a 15-minute thing pop up, and I'm like, oh, look, I have a call with Chase tomorrow for 15 minutes. Oh, okay, we must have a quick question. And, it's like, I'm good with that because I've got, and you can control your availability. So I've got my windows when I can have certain things, and it's incredibly efficient, and it doesn't waste anybody's time. You get right to the point, and that's a great point. Yes, that's an
Yeah, and,
efficiency that
and
I think's
customers are okay
incredible.
with it because they know they know they're calling a professional. They know they're calling you. They know your schedule's busy. I mean, they see your title, and they know things are going on and it's busy season, whatever, and so they're okay booking a available time that matches their available time. And it just makes it a lot more efficient. I mean, that's just a prime example of like technology and how we've become efficient. And even my team, everybody has Calendly, and even in tax season, when customers want to schedule meetings, they send them a Calendly link, and they're not bothering them with phone calls, being inundated all day trying to get returns done, and then trying to get these phone calls. They just send out Calendly links, and somebody books a time.
Yep. Yep. And eliminating the phone tag. I think that's the thing I probably hated the most. Someone would call me and I'd miss it. And then I'd try to call them back and go to their voicemail. And then, and I'm like, just here, just do this. Then when we call each other, we know we're set. And it's awesome. So going back a little bit, it's talking about people. Managing people is always interesting. So what would you say is one of the biggest learning experiences you've had, or the things that you've learned the most from managing other people?
Biggest thing for me is just communication. I mean, I think early on and my team will tell you, I was a horrible communicator. And that's really something that I've worked on personally, with coaching, or just, in general, just watching how I communicate. It used to be more reactionary, and over time I've evolved into more, like, let's look into this type, conversation, and just, and putting it in the hands of them. So it kind of based back to figuring out for yourself, like, instead of saying, I can't believe, this client's emailing this, like, what'd you do wrong? And instead saying, I just email back, what are they talking about? What's going on here? And then, let them explain, because they're in a day to day. I'm not in these conversations every day. And, so I don't really know what's going on until I get an email, and then they're complaining. So, let's dig into it and let the team figure it out. I think that's been a big cultural change too for us, because the team realizes, they're supported, and, they can explain, what's going on. And, once I hear it from them, and, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And, they're like, okay, well, I'm not in trouble basically because this client's complaining. It
Yeah.
makes it a lot easier these days, but communication's the biggest for me. It just, learning how to communicate differently to different people. Not everybody's the same, especially when you're training people. You have to learn how they hear things. How do they learn? Is it verbal? Is it written? Is it both? Like, maybe it's different tone. And just in those ways, being a
Yeah.
better communicator has made me a better manager of people.
What did you deploy to help yourself kind of improve in that area? I mean, certain books or certain programs. You said coaching. What were some of the things that you did?
Uh, I tell you, I don't read books, but I will read a summary. But there's really not one thing. I mean, we had like a kind of a coach that I invested in the team to have, and really it was more pre-pandemic, where we were still in the office, and she was really coaching everybody about interrupting one another, because when you're in an office, it's you quickly go into somebody's office and ask a question, but they might be in the middle of something. And so that was kind of part of that development for everybody and me, like, hey, everybody's in the middle of something all the time, we're all busy, just ping them, like we use Slack, say, hey, do you have a second, can we jump on a quick call these days? Or or just ask the question and wait for them to respond, when they're available. But I think it's just getting older. and understanding people and like how to communicate better
Yeah.
and just be more positive and
Yeah.
coaching. I think not being in the weeds too is helpful because I'm not stressed out, especially
Mm,
in tax season. Like I'm not involved, day to day in taxes. My tax manager handles it now, so that too, I think, plays into it as well. Like I'm not stressed out in the weeds, and I
mm.
can kind of step back and look at it from a holistic perspective.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask you more about that. So you mentioned that earlier too, that you're not doing tax reviews anymore, and you're not really doing that day to day work. So what do you spend your time doing, firm related? Because I think it is unique also that you've been able to sort of elevate yourself off of doing some of that technical work.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you got to find the right talent to get there, and it takes a while. I mean, it wasn't, from day one, but nowadays, I mean, I'm mostly business development, like sales, processes, looking at new technology, really just managing the business, Q&A with team members, maybe there's issues going on, and then just kind of, I don't know, general management of the firm, like really, but just I'm kind of more of forward thinker. I mean, like I'm always, thinking about 3, 5, 10 years from now, what does that look like? Where are we trying to go? And working on different things. So I always have all these different projects that I'm doing in my head or physically on paper. But that's kind of really my role today, which is what a CEO of a company should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Not doing reconciliation and a 1040. I think most people, most CPAs, that I've ever talked to over the last 20 years, has they're afraid that if they give up control of a tax return that somebody's going to make a mistake. Well, of course there's mistakes are going to be made, but as long as it's not significant and you're reviewing, you have somebody to review them properly, that knows what they're doing, and you're coaching mistakes in real time. Maybe you lose some business here and there. I mean, that's just the nature of the deal. But over time, those people learn from their mistakes and they grow, and it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, I think that's pretty profound because I think you're right, and I've seen the same. Is that there's a fear of giving up control, but it's interesting because that's probably the number one limiting factor I think to many firms and professionals in the space is that if they can actually find the space to give up some of that control, that's really where I think things can start to blossom, and that kind of comes into the segue of really looking at an individual holistically, looking at yourself. It's how I look at myself as a whole person and not just a CPA or not just running this business. And you mentioned that earlier, as you want to run this as a business, not a lifestyle. So you still are able to live your life. You're still able to have outside passions or interests or things that you want to do aside from sitting at your desk day in and day out, 7 days a week or for umpteen hours. So tell us a little bit about Chase. I do know you have a place in Portugal, which I think is great. I had dinner with friends last night. We were talking. She's like, I don't know what the deal is with Portugal. Everybody's going to Portugal. So talk a little bit about that, and again, how you balanced all of this.
Yeah, I think I was actually looking at a book to read, but when I see a
Just
book, it's like, oh
looking
my
at the
God, it's
summary.
daunting with all these pages of black and white. But there was I watched like a review of it, and she said, I think it was Steve Forbes, like 80% of small businesses never exit or sell,
Mm,
and most people create a business to have a job. And I was like, that's a great point because and what I do at conferences is I like to talk to the old CPAs. I'm in my mid 40s right now, so I got a ways to go. But I always I enjoy because they've been around the longest and they know more than everybody else. So let me see what
hmm
they have to say. And 60, 70, 80s. I always ask them like, when are you planning to retire? What are you looking to step out at some point? And majority of the time, It's like, no, I enjoy what I'm doing, or, I'm still working 30, 40 plus hours a week. And, I just like working, and that's fine. If that suits you, that's great. But that's not what I want my life to be. And for me, I just want the flexibility to do what I want when I want, and, in retirement and in my older age. So, that's why I've always trying to grow it as a business. So I'm not stuck in the weeds and stuck at a desk for long. And I don't know what this looks like, in 10 plus years either. I don't know, whether the firm sells or the employees buy it, or, it's still running itself and it's self-sustainable. I don't know, but there's options, and I can do what I want. And so for me, my personality is, I just like the flexibility. So I want to travel. I love traveling. Huge, like, points and miles expert, like first class, business class around the world.
Oh, nice.
So I love travel, but I have hobbies. And so another theme I've discovered in conversation is most people in CPAs, they really haven't found something they enjoy outside of work. And, like, I mean, I could fulfill my day with all kinds of things. I don't know, working out, golfing a couple times a week, which I haven't done since before the pandemic, traveling, going, enjoying meals, with my wife every now and again, like more, and just enjoying life and being available for family, more, and, all these kinds of things. Like, I feel like I could fulfill my day right now if I was to retire tomorrow. But I think a lot of people struggle, and I think they're working in the weeds for 20, 30, 40 years. And then one day maybe they sell their firm, and then they're now retired, and they're like, what do I do with myself? I don't know what to do other than the desk. So that's why they go back, and they go back to the desk, and they just start working again, because that's all they know. That's kind of what the conversations I've had with people, that's what I've discovered, has been the theme. And so for me, I just, I don't want to do that. That's not me.
Well, that's why I thought it was so interesting having the conversation, meeting you and your team, and how much I enjoyed the culture of their perspective and your perspective on how you manage this firm and how you manage clients. And it was enlightening, and it was refreshing to really see that, and see that, it looks like you're still able to enjoy life, and at times work from Portugal and still manage your firm and still continue to work and do what you love and mix that in. And I completely agree with you. I feel so strongly that having something that you're passionate about is life-changing in so many aspects. And I felt that young. My own mom, when, she was a wonderful mother, she kind of had a sort of a side job, but she really took care of us kids. And when I was the youngest, I moved out. It was really difficult for her because, in a sense, it was her retiring, and she didn't have anything to do. She didn't have anybody to take care of. And it just left her sort of floundering. And, continuing to develop yourself and take time to invest in hobbies or things that you enjoy, I think are just so paramount to our own sanity, our physical health, obviously. And it does circle back to our teams. It circles back to our clients and to our businesses. And, your website, one thing that was in there that I appreciated was essentially what you were saying here, is that this is a business, not a lifestyle. And I want to build this so that I can eventually move on and enjoy my life and enjoy retirement, but that you want to help your clients achieve the same thing. And I think that's most people's goal. So I can see how your ability to provide that type of guidance is huge when you're able to accomplish the same thing. And then you're looking at providing that type of advisory support for your clients. And so and you mentioned that when we were having dinner as well, that you've really tried to be more of an advisor. And so many firms, like, this is all over, everything is compliance to advisory. But what does it mean?
Yeah.
And I think you've really are accomplishing that. So, what's really the biggest driver you think that helped you make that transition?
I mean, for me, it was just like, I basically put every client that we work with, I was putting myself in their shoes And what would I do if I were in their shoes? That's how I approach it, and how I talk to them, and how I advise them. And early days, I would get like back to like evolving. I would get more passionate, I guess you could say, about like, this is what you need to do. Like, why aren't you doing this? And then over time, I'm just like, if they take my advice, they take it. If not, that's on you. But back to really kind of the coaching and like mentoring and advising and wealth planning. It goes back to just the basics of like saving money. Most business owners are just continually like putting back into the business, which is fine to a degree, but over time, most businesses, again, back to the quote, 80% never sell. So you get to that end of the rope, whatever that looks like. Maybe there's a life change. Maybe you're just tired and ready to sell. And you're never going to get what you put into it, the blood, sweat, and tears. Their number's never going to be what you expect it to be generally. And so you should be, what we try and tell people is you should be putting away something, $100, $10,000, whatever, max out a 401k annually, whatever that looks like, whatever your cash flow allows you to do. That's what you should be doing annually. So you at least at the end of the rope, if you sell the business, great. That's like a bonus in my opinion. But that's how I treat myself. I'm saving annually. I'm not counting on selling the business to retire. I'm not counting on Social Security, which, probably won't be there when I retire. Or at least it's 50% of what the government tells me today.
Yeah.
So I'm saving for my retirement so I can enjoy my lifestyle and not have to worry about somebody giving it to me. And that's what we try and coach people. We're not unlicensed financial coaches that also DJ on the weekends, so this comes from like professional experience, and my own experience, in coaching my team, and really runs down like forecasting and cash flow. And then, most people don't realize that, like my parents, they, I love them dearly, but, let's just say I'm better at managing money. And, they get to the end of their career. My dad retired and at the end of last year, and now they're like, oh, well, we want to do all these things. I'm like, where's this money coming from? Like, why didn't you save for this over the course of the last decade, while you were working and building a small like savings nest egg to do these things you want to do in retirement? I mean, most people, I heard a while ago at a conference, like people only have like a 2-year horizon investing wise, and they don't see a 3-5+ year horizon. And so it's like, okay, well, I'm here now, let's do this. Like, that's not how money works. So a lot of times you have to plan for it long term. And so that's what it goes back to, just saving what you can. At least max out an IRA if you can do that. Start with 6,000 or whatever the limit is, this year, and do it for you and do it for your spouse. Can you pay your kids in the business? Let's help them save for college or whatever that looks like. And then if you have more money, max out a 401k or IRA, but put something away. So it's at least asset protected one, and then you're saving for yourself. And that's the biggest thing, is people are always taking care of other people and not themselves. And, that's why America is in the spot it's in, because you get to retirement and it's like, now I'm living on Social Security, and healthcare is taking half of it. And people didn't save enough or never save enough. I mean, you read all the statistics, you read all the stories. It happens generations after generations. And so
Yeah.
that's my passion. And so that's my passion, coaching my team, and that's kind of what you heard at dinner, like, because I've coached it down to them to advise and coach our clients that way. Again, whether they listen to us or not, it's kind of on them at this point. But
but
we at least tell them.
It's huge, because you're making a difference. You are. Every once in a while, those seeds stick, and it shifts what people do. And I've looked at some of the statistics, and it's a little terrifying and saddening, really. So one last final question for you.
So Portugal, before you get to the question.
Oh, yeah. Portugal.
Portugal. So, I bought a rental property there before the pandemic, new construction. So, opened up in the pandemic. That was interesting traveling. But I got in at the right time before it took. I think several nuggets of things are happening with Portugal. One, the pandemic. Everybody was on Instagram looking at pictures. Two, it's just cheap there. Thailand's the cheapest place I've ever been in my life, but Portugal's pretty on par, and that's why a lot of Europeans have been going to Portugal for a long time. British in particular is a huge destination for them because it's a quick 2-3 hour flight and it's warm. But Americans have discovered it because it's affordable. And there's just a lot of retirees, realizing, their Social Security money could go a lot further there than it can in America. So there's a huge movement, and now people are, it's a quick flight to Portugal on the East Coast, and people are discovering it. And Portuguese people are very friendly and open, and they're very receptible to Americans and tourists because they've been speaking English a long time with the British visitors. So English is comfortable for them, and but it's kind of those three things I think are driving the popularity in Portugal. But when I was there in the pandemic, in fact, my accountant told me before the pandemic, 10% of their tourists or something were Americans, and now it's 80 or 90%.
Wow,
it's just crazy
that's
after the
huge.
pandemic. There's this huge influx of Americans, which sucks for the Portuguese because it's driving up prices. My accountant said they could have a job and have money left over after living costs. Now they have to have 2 jobs to afford the living and have enough money to afford the living. So they're struggling keeping up with the demand, but locally. But it's definitely cheap there. You should check it out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's intriguing for sure. So we might have to put that on our travel list for the year and go check it out because I've been hearing a lot about it. So thanks for sharing that. So final question, what would you tell your 20-year-old self?
Good question. I don't know. I guess how to communicate better for summarizing this conversation.
Yeah.
How to communicate. I think just how to. I think when you're in your 20s, you're just learning job. And I think working for different bosses, has evolved me into having the type of firm we have today and how we treat people. But I would say certainly save money like everybody else says, but that never happens in your 20s usually.
Yeah.
I mean, I had student loans too, I had to pay those off, but, it's, I would say, just, learning how to speak to people and just being more open and receptive to different conversations. And more wiser, as people say, you get older, you become more wiser. I think it's certainly true now that I'm older.
Very true. I know it's constant. I know you look back. I'm like, I don't think I would ever want to go back and be 20. So the difficult times of getting comfortable in your own skin. But I know that can be a hard question, but I'm always interested in what people reflect on, and I think it's reflective of what we learn through life and what we've learned up to date, and of course, continually learning every day. So I'm so appreciative. Thank you so much for being a guest and for just sharing your story and your success and the way you think. I do find it refreshing. And I think that it's amazing what you built. Your team was fantastic. And I thought it was really great. So thank you for sharing.